Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, offering convenient delivery and free pickup to help with the busy times this holiday. Online customers enjoy the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started in the Safeway app or at safeway.com.
Welcome back. I hope you had a reason to be thankful this weekend. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, for the first time, the state has a list of what specific jobs will be needed to meet climate goals.
Every craft is starved for a workforce, and the employers are paying very well.
Then, in the case of a mass shooting a decade ago, there's closure now, but probably not the kind that victims and survivors were looking for.
Especially in this case where there's not really any doubt that he did it, he's confessed.
Plus, on this World AIDS Day, a Coloradan goes to a place they say is easy to overlook, and they're concerned that increasingly, so is the issue.
HIV is an everyone disease. It can impact and affect anyone.
It's Monday, December 1st. Here's the news in Colorado today. First, a sad update for you from the state capitol. A longtime legislator died Wednesday evening in a car wreck. Faith Winter was 45 years old. She was from Westminster, and she was entering her 12th and final year in office because of term limits. The cause of the crash is under investigation, and 3 other people were injured as well. Their identities weren't made public. At the Capitol, Winter had championed several high-profile policies, like a statewide paid family leave program that started last year, and billions of dollars in transportation and public transit funding, along with policies meant to improve air quality. Her personal experiences in office helped lead a tighter oversight of harassment at the Capitol. She alleged that she had been sexually harassed by a Democratic colleague, which led other women to share their own stories about him. And ultimately, the House voted to expel him. Winter told CPR in 2018 what she hoped that vote would mean.
The effect is the women in the building are going to be believed. They felt that their voices were heard and valued, and I think it's going to change the culture there.
Her legacy will also include the women that she's helped train to run for office themselves. And Faith Winter leaves behind 2 kids, along with her fiancé, a former state lawmaker, Matt Gray.
Colorado is continuing its plan to eliminate climate warming pollution by 2050, despite federal opposition. And it's going to take a lot of workers in a variety of industries to make that happen. The State Energy Office just identified which jobs it expects will see the most growth and where there will be the biggest shortage of workers. Freelance rural affairs reporter Ray Solomon joined Haley May to talk about it.
The idea of a climate workforce is new to me. So broadly, what kind of jobs are going to be most in demand?
Yeah, that climate workforce refers to all the workers that we're going to need to carry out our climate action plans in the state. And that's everyone from scientists to software engineers. The state identified about 200 occupations across the utilities, agriculture, transportation, and building sectors that play a role in the state's climate workforce. And I would say the biggest takeaway from this assessment is that Colorado needs a climate workforce that can work with their hands. Roughly 3/4 of the jobs identified as climate critical are in the skilled trades, with electricians, construction workers, and wind turbine technicians topping the list of expected climate worker shortfalls by 2030.
So then how big do we think this gap is between the workforce the state expects will need and the people actually available to do these jobs?
Well, it's a big gap, right? For example, climate action plans alone will create demand for an additional almost 3,000 electricians, more than 1,500 construction workers, and over 500 wind turbine techs just by the year 2035. And all of that's on top of significant projected growth in these fields before you even account for the climate action plans. And skilled tradespeople are really important if we're going to make that progress, because somebody needs to be available to do the work of installing and maintaining all those new heat pumps, solar panels, and EV charging stations, right?
Right. For someone who's interested and kind of wanting to do one of these jobs, is there a place that they can get the training that they need to apply? And does the state have a plan for where they're going to find those people?
Well, there are definitely places where you can get that training. Community colleges, for instance. I talked to Jim Jones, who runs the skilled trades department at Colorado Mountain College in the high country. He emphasized that there's already a dearth of skilled tradespeople up there, and more are aging out of the workforce now.
Every craft is starved for a workforce. And the employers are paying very well, whether it's HVAC, automotive, carpentry, masonry. All these employers still need a tremendous amount of workforce to come into our region.
So trade schools like his are a great place for rural residents to get the training they need to be prepared for these jobs. And his program is so successful that those classes fill up way ahead of time. And they're planning a pretty major expansion of that skilled trades program too.
While that gets going, from what it sounds like, there aren't enough workers now and the demand is expected to go up. I'm wondering if there's maybe any money in the state budget to get people trained.
Well, not yet. This report is just a blueprint. It's a plan, and the state hasn't dedicated any funding as of now. But I will say, as someone who's been covering this topic for a while, I just did a 3-part series on the need for a climate workforce, reported for KUNC. And what I found was that the skilled tradespeople needed for the climate workforce are in particularly short supply in Colorado's high country. And when I talked to the trade schools and the experts up there, I found out that these are really good jobs. They're really high paying. And everywhere I turned, I saw a dearth of staffing, whether that's expanding geothermal or installing solar panels. So they should be attractive jobs, and people might decide to go into these training programs to get them.
So then what does this all say about Colorado's ability to reach its future climate goals?
Well, these new figures are just the state's first attempt to quantify the workers who will be needed for those climate goals. It's just one step. But it's a sign that the state is at least taking stock. And even if there's no money attached to this report, maybe with enough market demand, tech schools will keep expanding their programs and more people will decide to pursue these professions. I'll also note, that unemployment has been on the rise in Colorado in recent years, so maybe more people are looking to switch careers, and these climate careers can be a good path for them.
Freelance reporter Ray Solomon, thanks so much for sharing.
Anytime.
This Thanksgiving holiday weekend marked 10 years since a shooting at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs. 3 people were killed, 9 others injured, and now it's clear that the suspect will never face justice. That's because he's died. CPR's Ava Kian is here to tell us more. Ava, the suspect, Robert Deere, was being held in a medical facility when he died about a week ago.
Right, because for years, courts have tried to get him mentally competent enough to stand trial for the shooting. Deere was facing hundreds of state and federal charges. But pretty quickly after he was charged, state-mandated evaluations to see if he was competent to stand trial found that he wasn't, and he was sent to the state's Mental Health Institute in Pueblo. Families pushed for years to get him tried, and in 2022, a judge ordered him to be forcibly medicated to try and get him to an adequate state for trial. But even that didn't work. He is admitted to the shooting in several instances, but he's never made an official plea because of his competency.
Ava, can you remind us about the victims in this case? Who were the people who died that day at the clinic?
Jennifer Markovsky and Kier Stewart were both at the clinic that day to support other people getting services. Stewart was an Iraq War veteran. He and Markovsky each had 2 kids at home. The third person killed was a police officer, Garrett Swayze. He was with the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs Police Department. Other police officers were also among the injured. It does appear it was an ideologically motivated attack. The New York Times reported that a number of people who knew the suspect said that he was a staunch opponent of abortion.
What do we know about Deer's death while he was in custody?
We don't know much yet. He was 67. The Federal Bureau of Prisons did not immediately release any information about the cause of his death.
And even before his death, you've reported that it seemed likely he would never stand trial anyway. In fact, you were writing up that story, you were getting ready to publish it when we learned that he died. Why was that? Why did it seem certain he would not face trial?
Yes, it had recently been ruled that he was unlikely to regain competence, even under that forcible medication. So he was about to be civilly committed. That means the case would have been dropped, and he would have been admitted to a federal mental health facility for treatment. Jonathan Booth teaches law at the University of Colorado and told me Deer likely would have spent the rest of his life in that federal facility after being civilly committed. And this was a sign that the victims' families and the survivors would probably never get their day in court anyway, to face the person who harmed them.
But I do think it's different than actually receiving a guilty verdict, and especially in this case where there's not really any doubt that he did it, he's confessed.
And Booth said that outcome, if he had been civilly committed, wouldn't have necessarily been justice in the traditional sense anyway.
CPR Justice reporter Ava Kian, thank you.
You're welcome, Bazi.
Today is World AIDS Day. It's meant to raise awareness that the HIV epidemic is ongoing and recognize the lives that the virus has claimed and the caregivers who've stepped up. Barb Cardell marks special occasions like this by going to downtown Denver to the Colorado AIDS Memorial, also known as The Grove. You'll find it near the riverfront, across the water from the big REI store.
It's a little bit of a travel for me, but when I come every single time, I am really touched by the space that we have in Denver to remember people.
Shops, restaurants, and apartment complexes surround the Grove. It's a bit tucked away, easy to overlook, much like the issue itself, says Cardell.
HIV is still common. 1.2 million people in the United States are living with HIV. But most of the time, because of stigma and discrimination, people are not comfortable sharing their status. And so I see parallels with this really overrun park between how we treat people who are living with HIV and how we remember those we've lost.
Cardell is with the Positive Women's Network and has been appointed by many different governors to the Colorado Alliance for HIV Care, Prevention, and Treatment.
Probably in 1985, I had a friend who was from New York, who was a fabulous, fabulous gay man. And he was always kind of not very healthy. And one Christmas we went home and he never came back.
He died of AIDS-related complications. Cardell became an advocate and, in 1991, also acquired HIV.
You know, in the early days, we mobilized and we protested and we were active and we supported each other, and then the medications came along and life actually got normal. People were able to get jobs, people had families, people were able to go about their life and really not even think about living with HIV as long as they had access to medication, and that is a really important thing to say.
An unintended consequence, says Cardell, is less visible activism. But it may be time to return to the streets, Cardell believes, because the Trump administration is gutting global aid work and cutting domestic research. Like, for example, you might have heard my interview with two scientists who had their federal funding suspended this year. They've been studying HIV among trans people who have a much higher rate of the virus than other populations. Cardell is worried about the White House's targeting of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
HIV is an everyone disease. It can impact and affect anyone. But when we're talking about groups that in particular are really being ignored and marginalized, people living with HIV, absolutely. Communities of color, absolutely. LGBTQ folks, absolutely. Trans folks, especially, because we see them being erased.
And that's all reframing this year's World AIDS Day for Cardell. And yet, Cardell is grateful to have community and to mark another year of being alive.
I was supposed to be dead before I turned 40. And on my 40th birthday, I had a huge celebration because I was still alive and I was still pretty healthy, actually. And it was very funny because I compare that to my friends who aren't living with HIV, and on their 40th birthday, they got very sad and very glum. And the same thing for the 50th and the same thing for the 60th. And for me, I'm like, hell, I'm still here. This is fantastic.
You can hear the full conversation at the Colorado AIDS Memorial on the Colorado Matters podcast. And tonight, Park Hill United Methodist Church in Denver hosts the World AIDS Day commemoration. Additional reporting for today's show came from CPR's Ryan Warner and the Colorado Sun through the Colorado Capital News Alliance. To keep up on what's happening in your state, be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, celebrating the holiday with fresh local produce, quality meats, and seasonal favorites. Shop in-store or let Safeway do the shopping this holiday season with free curbside pickup using the Safeway app.